Are you responsible? Okay. Let's go. once again. But first, story time. Chapter 1. Anita. The most famous bigot in American LGBT history is a woman called Anita Bryant. This is her story. 1977 was not a good time to be gay. Is it ever really a good time to be gay? In 1969, the Stonewall riots forced gay rights into national consciousness. The first Pride parades were held in the summer of 1970, and in 1973, the American Psychiatric Association declassified homosexuality as a mental disorder. But only after gay activists disrupted their conference and shouted, "Gay conversion therapy is torture. We have abnormal urges, and we will not be silenced." Because that's the only way to get anything done in this country. You have to be super annoying about it. They give you no choice. On January 18th, 1977, Dade County, Florida, known for such popular cities as Miami, approved a law that added the phrase affectional or sexual preference to its non-discrimination ordinance, effectively banning housing and employment discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. And it was just then, as things seemed to be getting better, that Anita Bryant made her little appearance.
Anita Bryant, Miss Oklahoma!
Anita Bryant is a native Oklahoman who once had a career as a pop singer, beauty queen, and spokeswoman for the Florida Citrus Commission.
Come to the Florida sunshine tree.
My twins love 100% orange juice from Florida anytime of day. Orange juice from Florida! It isn't just for breakfast anymore!
Orange juice with natural vitamin C from the Florida sunshine tree.
She was known for these TV commercials with the tagline,
A day without orange juice is like a day without sunshine.
Breakfast without orange juice is like a day without sunshine.
cute. When Anita heard her pastor speak about this non-discrimination ordinance, she felt a divine disturbance in her heart. How touching.
According to the Word of God, it's an abomination to practice homosexuality.
As a mother, she would not stand for this. So Anita wrote a letter to the county commissioner saying,
As a concerned mother of 4 children, I am most definitely against this ordinance amendment. I have never condoned nor taught my children discrimination against anyone. But if this ordinance amendment is allowed to become law, you will, in fact, be infringing upon my rights and discriminating against me as a citizen and a mother to teach my children God's moral code as stated in the Holy Scriptures.
Anita, kill your shitty child. When the amendment passed, Anita created a campaign for its repeal, the Save Our Children Coalition, which sponsored provocative TV ads implying that gay people are degenerates who ruin communities and seduce children.
The campaign has been vicious. With television commercials, the Save Our Children group is appealing to parental anxieties, saying gays will flaunt their homosexuality before impressionable children.
The Orange Bowl Parade, Miami's gift to the nation. Wholesome entertainment.
They will flaunt
But in
their
San Francisco,
homosexuality.
when they take to the streets, it's a parade of homosexuals. Men hugging other men, cavorting with little boys.
Save Our Children sparked the first organized backlash to gay rights in the United States, escalating the conflict into a national controversy. On one side were the gay rights activists, who argued that non-discrimination was a matter of human rights. On the opposing side, Anita Bryant argued that the non-discrimination ordinance would give special privileges to homosexuals.
We all believe in human rights, but we don't believe human rights that would corrupt our children or for individuals to have special privileges that would go against the constitutional rights of normal America.
As long as they don't want to flaunt their homosexuality, they have equal rights the same as anyone else.
In other words, gay people already have equal rights, just as long as they stay in the closet and don't do anything gay. That's very helpful. Thank you so much, Anita, for standing up for our right to be gay in secret.
As long as they do their job and do not want to come out of the closet and force their homosexuality on me in the areas of business or in the schools, they can live their life, and we're not going out after their jobs or trying to get them out of their teaching jobs or housing.
Anita also argued that allowing flaunting homosexuals to teach children was tantamount to gay recruitment.
Just biologically, that God made mothers so that we could reproduce. Homosexuals cannot reproduce biologically, but they have to reproduce by recruiting our children.
It's the exact same argument that's being used today by right-wing politicians who claim that queer people are groomers.
Stop confusing our babies with your groomer gender ideologue.
This wicked book, me and Earl and the dying girl sexually indoctrinated with wicked, vile books. And she believes in traditional marriage between a man and a woman. And in that book, it talked about two moms.
Stay away from the children's creep or you will regret it. People should definitely arm themselves. I agree with that.
The Democrats are the party of pedophiles.
Ew!
The Democrats are the party of teachers,
eating.
elementary school teachers trying to
so
transition their elementary school age children and convince them they're a different gender.
They're just evil people, and they want to groom kids.
Yeah.
They're recruiting.
If you don't know what furries are, it's where school children dress up as animals, cats or dogs, during the school day. They meow and they bark.
What a great country we live in. I love it so much. Gay people around the country rallied against Anita Bryant and Save Our Children. There was a national boycott of Florida orange juice, with many gay bars taking screwdrivers off the menu and replacing them with an apple juice and vodka cocktail called an Anita Bryant. Let's make one now. Forgot my cocktail measure, so I'm just gonna have to eyeball this. Just a dash of apple juice. Give it a stir.
What the fuck?
Needs a garnish. Stunning. I mean, it's not as good as a screwdriver, but if I was in the 70s, I would have thrown back so many of these goddamn things out of pure spite. There's a story that Troy Perry, the founder of the gay-affirming Metropolitan Community Church, was on a transcontinental flight, and when the attendant put a glass of orange juice on his tray, he said, "Take that away. I'm a homosexual." At gay pride marches in 1977 and 78, anti-Anita Bryant slogans featured prominently on t-shirts, signs, and buttons. Anita Bryant sucks oranges. A day without lesbians is like a day without sunshine. True. And meanwhile, Anita's campaign inspired more anti-gay legislation, including bans on gay adoption and same-sex marriage, both of which passed in the Florida Senate, as well as the failed Briggs Initiative in California, which would have forced public schools to fire gay teachers. So Anita Bryant was worse than a bigot. She was an influential bigot, but she may also have helped to unify and galvanize gay activists by providing them with a common enemy. According to historian Lillian Faderman, Anita Bryant created fervent activists out of those who'd previously been content simply to enjoy their newfound freedoms. Faderman cites Eric Hoffer's observation that a mass movement can get along fine without a god, but it won't get along at all without a devil. For gay people all over the country, Anita Bryant became that devil.
I think that she is rallying the community together like I have never seen before. There's no way I could have done it on my own.
So even though she succeeded in her initial goal to repeal the non-discrimination ordinance, there is no question that, in the long term, Anita Bryant was the loser. She took a lot of L's. RIP. That must be super hard for her. For the short remainder of her career, gay activists protested her events. They shut down the tour for her book about how persecuted she was by the militant homosexual, and they succeeded in turning public opinion against Anita Bryant to the point that she became virtually unemployable in mainstream entertainment. And it helped that she came across as kind of a judgmental prude that even hip straight people didn't want to be associated with.
Our top story tonight, Anita Bryant, former mediocre actress and orange juice promoter, performed coitus in public yesterday and campaigned to promote heterosexuality.
We don't serve orange juice anymore.
Like she famously told Playboy magazine,
Why do you think the homosexuals are called fruits? It's because they eat the forbidden fruit of the tree of life. God referred to men as trees, and because the homosexuals eat the forbidden fruit, which is male sperm.
Oh my God.
like the woman is heterosexual cringe. This is how you lose the culture war.
So let's all squeeze a fruit for Anita. Pass a little juice around.
And of course, there was the famous incident where a gay activist smashed a banana cream pie in Anita's face during a TV appearance.
And went into a place called Norfolk, Virginia, and were met with protest and all kinds of problems. And every...
Oh!
Security agent, security agent.
No, let him stay.
No. Well, at least it's a fruit pie.
Miami-Dade County finally reinstated the non-discrimination ordinance in 1998, and they added gender identity to its protections in 2014. In 2021, Anita took another metaphorical pie to the face when her granddaughter, Sarah Green, came out as gay announcing her marriage to a woman and publicly struggling with whether to even invite her grandmother to the ceremony.
It's very hard to argue with someone who thinks that like an integral part of your identity is just an evil delusion.
That it is, Sarah. That it is. So that's the story of Anita Bryant as students of LGBT history know it. But isn't it a bit one-sided? Wasn't there a lot of toxicity on both sides?
The Anita Bryant forces talk of absolute truth and morality. Gay leaders are equally dogmatic about human rights.
I played on both the houses.
Isn't it cruel, even, to slur Anita as a bigot and a homophobe? In fact, isn't it possible that Anita Bryant was the real victim? Oh no. Oh no!
I think she's drawing a it's pretty clear she's drawing a parallel to
I'm eating my
Rowling,
pie.
right?
I'm eating my goddamn pie. Chapter 2. The Witch Trials of Anita Bryant. God help us all. The mainstream media would have us believe that Anita Bryant is a so-called homophobe, some kind of hateful bigot. But isn't this just an authoritarian tactic used to silence valid concerns? Mothers in this country are worried about their children going to school to be taught by perverts. How can we be so sure that the militant homosexuals weren't the real bigots? Isn't it possible that Anita Bryant was the first victim of cancel culture, of, dare I say it, wokeism? Well, no, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. But suppose that you're an idiot, and suppose that that's the narrative you wanted to promote. Well, what would be your argument? I mean, if someone put a gun to my head and forced me to make that argument, I'd probably say something like this. Anita Bryant lived a difficult life. In 1940, she was born into brutal poverty in rural Oklahoma. Her parents divorced when she was just 2 years old, the same year she made her singing debut at the Baptist church.
Parts of my childhood I blocked out because it hurts too much. I guess I was happiest when I was 8 years old, and my parents were remarried, and I was baptized and came to know Christ as my personal savior.
Her father abandoned the family again when she was 12.
It was real painful, and it just about killed my mother. She was a very submissive wife. She was too submissive, and it angered me. She let my dad step all over her. Because of him, I think I went through life for a long time hating all men.
Anita described her most intense adolescent memory as a feeling of intense ambition.
A relentless drive to succeed at doing well the thing I loved.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on.
But Anita's ambition conflicted with her submissive role as a traditional Christian woman. In 1960, Anita married Bob Green, Miami's top disc jockey, though only after he relentlessly badgered her into it.
This is what heterosexuals do, fellas.
Green was allegedly a controlling and abusive husband. Feminist Andrea Dworkin claims
Green manipulated Bryant with a cruelty nearly unmatched in modern love stories.
And Anita rationalized the abuse, saying,
Despite our sometimes violent scraps, I love him for it.
But while submitting to her husband and raising 4 children, Anita was still able to build the career she'd always wanted. By the 1970s, she was on the payroll of Big Orange Juice, earning $500,000 a year, enough to move her family into a 27-room Spanish mansion on Biscayne Bay. So Anita Bryant struggled all her life for her success. Did she really deserve to lose it all just because she took a stand for something she believed in?
Anita Bryant's role as a leader in the campaign against homosexuals may be hurting her campaign to sell orange juice.
Are you being blackballed?
Well, it looks that way. It's worse than that.
Orange
We're being
ball.
threatened, and there's all kinds of harassment, even with my job with Florida Citrus.
I have been blacklisted for exercising the right of a mother to defend her
A
children
mother?
and all children against their being recruited by homosexuals.
Fuck
Her
you,
entire life
Anita.
had become a series of catastrophes. She'd been dropped as spokesperson by the orange growers. She had been dropped as a commentator on the Orange Bowl parade. She lost a television show contract. Her bookings dropped drastically.
It destroyed the dream that I have had since I was a
Oh,
child
no.
to entertain and present wholesome subjects to my fellow Americans because I dared to speak out for straight and normal America.
No one has paid as dearly as Anita Bryant for taking a public stand on something she believed in.
I remember lying in the bed in my mother's house in a fetal position and wanting to die.
Gay activists in the 1970s didn't exactly limit their tactics to polite debate in the free marketplace of ideas.
Homosexuals started fighting back. The gays formed new groups and picketed the performer's
gays.
public appearances, forcing her to cancel a few.
Gay activists routinely compared Anita to Adolf H. They created pastiches of her orange juice slogan. They blamed her for hate crimes. They burned her in effigy. They disrupted events she was involved in. They printed toilet paper with her face on it. Some sent Anita death threats, or they mailed her rotting oranges, dead cockroaches, human excrement. See, this is how you canceled people before phones. Instead of shitposting, you would simply mail actual human shit through the United States Postal Service. Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of night. Anita's husband pleaded to supporters.
How would you men feel if you opened a letter and there was a photo of your wife's head superimposed on some other female nude body in the most lewd and shocking sexual act you can imagine?
I can imagine quite a lot. I do think it would be fair to say that a lot of the rhetoric did take on a misogynistic tone. Lillian Faderman recounts that lesbians, particularly lesbian feminists, abhorred the sexist terms that were being used to characterize Anita Bryant. Bitch and whore, gay men called her. The harassment escalated to the point where Anita had to cancel her book tour due to demonstrations and bomb threats from gay activists. And of course, there was the pie. So much for the tolerant Mattachine Society. It's kind of a deep cut. Well, something to entertain the boomer queers. Gay activists claimed to stand for human rights. But what about Anita's right to free speech? I wish I had some literal pearls to clutch. Civil libertarian Nat Hentoff wrote in his 1992 book, Free Speech for Me, But Not for Thee, that the orange juice boycott reminded him of a little thing called McCarthyism. Have you ever considered that being pro-gay is quite similar to being anti-gay, and that both are opinions? As Anita tells it, she and her foot soldiers of God were the victims of sinister gay carpetbaggers.
The foot soldiers were housewives and mothers, religious and civic leaders in opposition to a well-organized, highly financed, and politically militant group of homosexual activists. We were cast as bigots, haters, discriminators, and deniers of basic human rights. And all of this happened because we were sincerely concerned for our children and our community.
So Anita's version of the story is that she and a handful of well-intentioned Christian mothers were cast as bigots by a highly funded mafia of gay extremists, all because they had a few teensy tiny concerns about the militant homosexual cavorting with little boys.
Cavorting with little boys.
Is it really fair to call this woman a bigot? Until the Dade County Ordinance, Anita was a registered Democrat and considered herself a liberal. And she never said that she hated gay people or wanted them dead. In fact, she even said that she loves homosexuals.
I love homosexuals, if you can believe that. I love them enough to tell them the truth, because I know that there is hope for the homosexuals, that if they're willing to turn from sin the same as any individual, that they can be ex-homosexuals the same as there can be an ex-murderer, an ex-thief, or ex-anybody.
She loves homosexuals because they can change, just like murderers. Would a bigot have said that?
Jesus Christ.
Just about McFucking had it. Anita was so kind-hearted, she even said that she related to the homosexual.
I can relate to the homosexual because I've had emotional scars in my own life. I really felt the rejection of my father, and that is one of the things that maybe lead someone going into homosexuality. Look, I don't hate homosexuals. That's the truth, no matter what they think of my motives. I've always said I love the sinner, but I hate the sin.
Wow, what an empath. You know, I actually think it's really noble how she's able to project all of her own emotional baggage onto the marginalized group whose rights she's trying to take away. Okay. So we've given a fair hearing to both sides, to many sides. We've considered all the evidence. Now, let's suppose there's no longer a gun to my head and ask, did Anita Bryant really deserve that pie to the face? Well, yes.
Yeah.
Obviously. Look, the point I'm trying to make here is that it's possible to take genuine virtues like nuance, empathy, and impartiality and to twist them into fucked up apologia for horrible oppressive behavior. If you play this game long enough, you can essentially explain away the
Apologia? I thought
entire
it was
concept of
apologia.
bigotry and conclude that,
The
in reality, there are no bigots. There's only tragically misunderstood people
Apologia.
with difficult childhoods and valid concerns cruelly demonized by militant activists defaming and silencing them with such reputation-ruining slurs as homophobe. Now, because you, viewers, are smart, media-literate people, you understand framing, so you already know that I'm about to compare Anita Bryant to J.K. Rowling. In case you didn't know...
Oh no,
J.K.
I got it wrong. Oh wait, no I didn't.
J.K. Rowling is a popular author who used to write whimsical stories about wizard school, but who now writes books about transvestite serial killers masturbating into stolen panties because she's lost her goddamn mind. Lo ho ho, dear readers. Christ, what a nightmare. Chapter 3. The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling. Alright kids, it's Transin time. Last year, I agreed to be a guest on a podcast about J.K. Rowling, hosted by Megan Phelps Roper, an escapee from the Westboro Baptist Church, the notorious hate group from Topeka, Kansas, most known for protesting the funerals of soldiers with signs that say God hates God and me both. I'm tired of you people.
Wait,
JKLE. The Westboro Baptist Church is one of the most famous homophobic hate groups in the world.
Oh,
In a way,
yeah, I've heard of them.
I'm
I
like
remember them.
a lifelong fan of these people. I've watched all the Louis Theroux documentaries. I went to a counter protest in 2010. I remember how when I was in high school, the Westboro Baptist Church was like the one thing that conservatives and liberals could agree on because they hated the troops and the gays, essentially the two genders of 2006. But let's not pretend that the Westboro Baptist Church is all bad. Okay, when Megan was at Westboro, she used to do these amazing Lady Gaga parodies about how the gays are going to hell, which to this day I am a big fan of.
But what did you say? You think God loves your praying? He hates all you do cause you love fornicating. Fornicating.
It's perfect. I love it. Played at my funeral.
Stop praying, God will not hear you anymore. You got the boys and the girls to be proud boys. Forever burn. Go devil's fun, you just keep pushing on to the hell where you will forever burn.
Megan left the Westboro Baptist Church in 2012 after a crisis of faith precipitated by a power struggle within the church.
What is
She
he
wrote
drinking?
about all this in her book Unfollow, which is honestly a pretty interesting account of deconversion and the circumstances that lead someone to leaving a hate group. Megan contacted me for her podcast because I had criticized J.K. Rowling in a video a couple years ago. Now you might be wondering, why would I think that a person who's been carrying a God hates sign most of her life would be the correct person to lead an international conversation about the intricacies of LGBT issues?
Because I'm an idiot. Happy?
Basically, I agreed to the podcast because it's a pretty irresistible pitch. A former member of the Westboro Baptist Church wants to mediate a conversation between me and the author of Harry Potter. Would you say no to that? Maybe. If you're smart. Last month, the podcast was announced in an essay by Megan titled The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling. Obviously a tendentious framing that posits Jo Rowe as the target of an irrational trans witch hunt. The essay included a teaser quote from Rowling complaining that she's been profoundly misunderstood, as well as a photo of an angry trans mob holding a rotten hell rolling sign, juxtaposed with an image of conservative Christians burning Harry Potter books in the early 2000s. This did not bode well. So I disavowed the podcast on Twitter because I didn't want my name lending legitimacy to some kind of unearned J.K. Rowling redemption tour. This caused Megan's mom, Shirley, to quote tweet me, calling me a bigot against God. I mean, God is one of the most vulnerable minorities. There's only one of him. And he could really use your help, Shirley. I said in these tweets that I felt used, which that is how I felt, but ultimately, I need to take full responsibility for my involvement in this. The thing about being a guest on a documentary like this is you honestly have no idea what the final product is going to be like. So the decision to participate is always a leap of faith. And I can't really say that Megan misled me. There were red flags from the beginning, and I ignored them because I was projecting my own hopes onto the situation. You know, it's a compelling story. I liked the idea that this famous former bigot could talk some sense into a famous current bigot. We all love a good redemption arc, and I started my career de-radicalizing the alt-right. That's something I've moved away from, but there's still part of me that wants to see the best in people, and to believe that people can change if you just talk to them and make a good enough argument. Maybe my wishful thinking was that because Megan left Westboro, that must mean that she must understand the intricacies of anti-LGBT bigotry, right? And, despite no evidence for this, my hope was that Megan would act as a trans ally and could be really effective at confronting Joro about all the transphobic stuff she says, right? Wrong.
I'm Megan Phelps-Roper, and these are the witch trials of J.K. Rowling.
The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling is more than 7 hours of apologetics for J.K.R. The podcast presents Rowling as a complex, humane, heroic figure with an inspiring feminist backstory.
Jo Rowling's rise to success is this sort of feminist Cinderella story.
Now cruelly besieged by a vicious mob of transgender activists, all because she, as a woman, had a few tiny concerns about the transgender rapists.
I had been becoming increasingly concerned about the way in which women were being shut down, women who I felt had some very valid concerns.
Megan uncritically accepts Rowling's framing of the conflict as feminists versus trans rights activists, whom Rowling describes as
a powerful, insidious, misogynistic movement.
For the first 5 hours of this podcast, Rowling's critics are presented as an irrational mob of enraged, shrieking, sexually violent fanatics.
You are murdering trans children!
A huge amount of, I want her to choke on my fat trans dick.
And you did it at my birthday dinner.
There's this one clip of some kind of Antifa super soldiers abrasive screaming that they play like once per episode.
Fuck you, you ugly piece of shit! You look like you got your teeth knocked out, you fucking fascist! Nobody knows who you are, and nobody cares, and you will die alone!
And then it usually cuts to like somber monks chanting some kind of medieval lament.
You will die alone and you will burn in hell!
Just in case you didn't get from the title that this is a witch hunt. Do you guys get it? Do you get it yet? And then these mobs of irrational, misogynistic trans rights fanatics are contrasted with this poignant story of how J.K. Rowling escaped her abusive husband to publish our generation's most beloved novels.
I was still very committed to those parts that I'd plotted in darkness, as it were, because there was a truth to them, and there was a power to them.
The only voices of genuine trans dissent appear in episode 6 out of 7, more than 5 hours in. And there's only 2 of us. One is me, Shame, and the other is a teenager named Noah who kind of just seems like he wants to be liked and understood and wishes that his favorite author would please stop saying bigoted things about him.
I'm such a big Harry Potter fan, or I was such a big Harry Potter fan, especially because it was so hard to be in the real world. I can't even state how important it was to me. J.K. Rowling, I stole her biography from my 3rd grade classroom and I kept it for a long time because I just loved reading it because I just admired her so much.
It's honestly pretty heartbreaking to
Yeah,
listen
that's
to.
really sad.
On my last day editing this video, I got in touch with Noah. I asked him if he had any thoughts about the podcast he wanted me to pass along, and this is what he said.
I want to emphasize that the stakes of this issue are very different from any sort of rhetorical debate. Conversation, dialogue, and debate are important, but for many of the most vulnerable people in society, the outcome of this conversation dictates their health, well-being, and ability to survive. How we treat or talk to people like J.K. Rowling should come second to fighting for maintained access to healthcare, support, and general resources for children and adolescents seeking gender care.
Yeah.
I agree. The most frustrating thing about this podcast is that it refuses to be honest about what it is. They spend 7 hours implying that J.K. Rowling is the victim of a witch hunt in the most heavy-handed way imaginable.
These are the witch trials of J.K. Rowling.
I mean, turf is basically witch.
But if you point this out, they just deny it. Show me the actual words, Jack. Show me where I said I'm the victim of a witch hunt by trans people.
You're on a podcast called The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling.
Yes, a podcast on which I never once say I'm a victim of a witch hunt by trans people.
What are you talking about? I'm not scamming the government, if that's what you're saying.
Your license plate says scamming.
No.
What do you mean, no?
Yes.
Joanne, show me where I ever said that I'm the target of a witch hunt, you liar. Why would you even think that? You're crazy. By the way, come get your This Witch Doesn't Burn t-shirt for sale now at Wild Woman Workshop. And Megan is not much better. There's this whole section in episode 2 where Megan interviews Christians who burned Harry Potter books in the 1990s, and this is obviously meant to be foreshadowing.
So, looking back, would you say that the Christian parents were maybe part of a moral panic?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a scary world out there.
Megan doesn't explicitly say she thinks trans protests against Joe Roe are equivalent to the Christian ones in the 90s, but she does heavily imply it.
What the
There was an
fuck?
explosive reaction to Rowling's tweets, which led many, including lifelong fans of her work, to condemn her and to call for her books to be banned, boycotted, and in some cases, burned.
When confronted about the obvious implications of the podcast's title, Megan said, "The title is ambiguous. Toward the end of our conversations, I spent a long time talking with J.K. Rowling about discernment, about how a person can ever know if they're standing up for what's right or joining a moral panic. I think you'll be surprised by the thoughts she shares." Megan, I was not surprised.
I know I won't ever regret having stood up on this issue, ever.
The podcast released new episodes weekly, and whenever Megan was challenged about the blatant one-sidedness, Megan would respond, "Oh, you just think that because you haven't listened to the whole podcast yet. Maybe you should reserve judgment. Much more of other perspectives is coming. Make sure to tune in next week. More bombshell revelations to come." Well, I've listened to the whole podcast now, and I truly do not think that anyone with basic media comprehension skills could come away from this thinking that the main intent was anything other than to portray J.K. Rowling as the martyr of an unjust, what's the word? Witch hunt? This is the obvious implication of the podcast from the first words to the very last. And of course, Rowling does literally get the last word. The final episode concludes with this.
There are more important things in this world than being popular. And that doesn't mean it's more important to me to be right. It means it's more important to me to do the right thing.
Why would you end on that note? Why would anything about this podcast be the way it is if Megan didn't fundamentally believe that J.K. Rowling is in the right?
I don't regret it because I did the right thing.
There really is no other reasonable way to interpret this. So I wish that she would just be honest. If you believe that J.K. Rowling is the misunderstood victim of a witch hunt, then just say that. Make the argument you want to make. Don't crouch and hide behind this disavowal, this obfuscating veil of just asking questions. Don't rely on innuendo and framing and lachrymose Gregorian chanting to make your point, while coyly denying you have any kind of agenda beyond, I just believe in conversation. I don't know. I just find this a slippery and dishonest way to argue.
True.
But if you happen to be a fan of slippery and dishonest arguments, you're in luck, because there is more where that came from. This video is sponsored by Canabox. Canabox offers fresh human meat delivered directly to your doorstep. As an alphabet mafiosa, sometimes I just can't fit the most dangerous game into my busy lifestyle of destroying the family and recruiting children. Whenever a new box arrives, I get out my copy of Bless This Food, the Anita Bryant Family Cookbook. The best thing about human meat delivered to your home by mail in the dead of night? You don't know who you're eating, so it's totally guilt-free and ethically sourced. Maybe. There's no ethical consumption under capitalism. That means you're not allowed to cancel me. Chapter 4. Joe Rose Transphobia. That's it! I'm going full Slytherin. In episode 5 of The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling, Joe Rowe compares trans activists to Death Eaters, the fictionalized fascists in Harry Potter.
My position is that this activist movement, in the form that it's currently taking, echoes the very thing that I was warning against in Harry Potter. The Death Eaters claimed we have been made to live in secret, and now is our time. I am fighting what I see as a powerful, insidious, misogynistic movement.
When an article then claimed she had equated trans people to Death Eaters, the podcast's PR firm reached out demanding a correction, because she only equated the movement to Death Eaters, not trans people in general.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't hate marginalized people, I just hate it when they advocate for themselves. So
I'll be right back.